Today, I'm decommissioning the first server I ever built for my work here in my home. This dusty boy right here. I was inspired by a buddy who was going through some of his old hard drives and finding footage from his old videos, and everything's still kind of intact, and I don't really have a whole lot of that because I've always migrated my storage forward and then tried to reuse everything that I had, even hard drives from my laptops and stuff. But I have had this server that I built in 2016, 10 years ago now, when I was living in my first apartment for video encoding. And I have no clue what's on this. This is a server I built, like I said, 10 years ago to be a kind of video encoding, transcoding server, because at the time, in using Premiere, which was already full of tech debt at the time, scrubbing the timeline with H.264, H.265 footage and trying to edit really fast was a problem. And at the time, the meta of the scene was to transcode everything to Cineform to get much smoother timeline performance. These days I would use ProRes, especially since I mostly edit on Mac. And these days that's mostly not even necessary because DaVinci Resolve's GPU decoding engine is blazing fast. But at the time, with the resources I had, I needed something to help me out. So I would set up a watch folder that everything would go to, and this thing would convert it all, make it available to me, and then share it over the network through 10 gig networking for me to edit from. And it was a lifesaver. I have a whole series of building this with a YouTuber at the time named The Guy or Die. We had a kind of build off kind of show kind of thing, all using scrap parts except for my chassis here. If you want to check that out, I'll link the playlist in the description. I'm not sure it has any value today, but this has been in my server rack. I built this in, like I said, 2016. It just kind of sat next to my desk for a long time, which was fine. But then in 2017, 2018, I picked up a server rack from a GovDeals auction and had it in my apartment. And this ran in that. And then it was only a year or two after that that I stopped using it, but it kept taking up this for-use space in my server rack, even moving to my house here, basically acting as a shelf. So I want to get it out so I can have the rack space available, and I just kind of want to walk down memory lane, see if anything's on it, because I don't know. First and foremost, this is a Rosewheel 4U server chassis that is designed to hold a bunch of hard drives in here, full server motherboard support, and then it can lock. Now, obviously, I need to give it a little bit of a dust job here, because it was gathering dust when I used it, and then has sat still for a very long time. It is disgusting. I'm honestly not going to do a much better job than that because I'm mostly just ditching this whole thing. But I wanted to point out the chassis because someone had actually, in my recent server videos, someone had actually commented asking why I wouldn't go with a chassis like this, especially since I have a server rack, as compared to like my disk shelf that I have or the Storinator that I got from Wendell or whatever. And I wanted to kind of demonstrate it by looking at it physically here. I don't know how well you can see this. The front of it contains fans for the hard drives, which is not the worst thing in the world, but there is no easy access to the drives. If one dies, you are taking this whole thing apart and digging in it to get the hard drives out, which is a nightmare. And it's part of the reason it's just set here unused for so long, because it's a nightmare to get anything in and out of. There is no drive caddies. If you open it, there's no easy way to get the drives out that way. It's just set and forget, which is really not how using hard drives long-term really works out, especially for 24/7 server operation. So it's a great cheap chassis if you're just looking for it, but it is a nightmare to actually work with in that regard. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the lid here, see what we have inside. You know, it's not too dusty in here. Let's take a look. Inside here, we have a dual CPU setup, actually. This is a super micro server motherboard. You can see all of the slots are filled up with memory. I don't know how much is honestly in here. This is super old school as a platform, however. These are dual, what I believe to be Intel X5560 Xeons. These cost me a grand total of $25 in 2016. The whole reason I haven't used the server, despite how beefy and impressive it looks, is that realistically, for the power that you get, it is not even worth the cost of operating when you have more expensive hardware. This kind of stuff, you could probably get these CPUs for basically free. Like, I would probably ship, if I could find the right shipping thing, this whole motherboard CPU RAM situation. The RAM might be gold nowadays, but I would probably ship most of this to someone in, say, my Discord server or something, or the forums that wanted to start their own home server. I would ship the motherboard CPU RAM to someone basically for the cost of shipping, because you can get this kind of hardware dirt cheap. And if you don't have extra hardware, or you don't have super beefy hardware,
this kind of stuff is still super valuable. If you have, say, a Threadripper or a high-end processor or whatever, this isn't going to do anything extra for you. So I haven't really ran it, but dual CPUs with a lot of cores, which was great for transcoding footage in a CPU-bound environment, a ton of RAM. I've got a SATA card here, a 10 gigabit NIC, which was SFP Plus as the interface, which is fine. And then a bunch of hard drives. And you can see back here, for whatever reason, one of these hard drives, the power is not plugged in. That's kind of sus. We're going to plug that back in for us to check. I don't know why that is. Maybe it came out when I was taking the server out of the rack because it's kind of jank. There's like a SATA SSD stuck in here. But you can see here, to get the hard drives out, you have to pull the sleds out of here, which already is not wanting to cooperate. And then there's like nowhere for it to go. You like have to take out the fan wall here to pull the drives out. This is miserable to work in, especially in a scenario where you may need to diagnose and inspect individual drives. This is why I don't like this chassis. Again, for just starting out and for the budget I had 10 years ago, perfectly fine. I do have a random assortment of desktop drives in here. And like I said, it looks like a SATA SSD or two is shoved in there. And the only thing missing right now, we have an assortment of both PCIe and original PCI slots. That's how old this motherboard is. The only thing we're missing right now is a GPU. Now, at the time, I had run a GTX 750 Ti in here. That was the cheapest baseline NVENC hardware encoder setup and decoder that you could get at the time, because it was all basically the same generation. These days, I would use an Intel Arc or a RTX 20 series or newer for the newer encoders, but at the time we didn't have any of those. I don't have a GPU in here. There is an onboard VGA port for display output, but I think that's just going to be for like management purposes. I don't know if there's an operating system on here anymore. There might just be Windows or nothing at all, but I am going to throw in just a basic little GPU here because I believe we have, we got a PCIe power connector, so I can throw a GPU in here and we can see if we get anything out of it. I honestly don't know. I would love to see if there's anything still stored on here. A peek at the workflow from 10 years ago, which at the time I was using a bunch, since I was knee deep in the Adobe ecosystem, I was trying to use Adobe Media Encoder with watch folders. I know I had a cool FFmpeg flow set up at some point, like a node-based FFmpeg workflow that was pretty neat, but nothing like I would use these days. I don't even know if I can fit this in here without taking the crossbar out. Yeah, I don't see that working out without hurting something, so this little support bar we don't need since it's not going back in a rack. We can just take it out. This bar here served purely to give it structural rigidity in a rack, especially because it did not come with rails. So I was mostly just sitting it on shelves. All right, we got that in there. 8-pin PCIe power, should be enough from this power supply. This is a newer, like low-end AMD card. I'm hoping it's like a RX 6600 or something. I'm hoping it won't be too new, that it will still work. This is probably running like Windows 7. I honestly don't know. I'm not gonna connect it to the network. We're just gonna direct connect a mouse and keyboard. I'll run HDMI from here. And we'll see what it looks like, I guess. All right. It is, oh, that was a weird sound. It is plugged into power. Let's hope it doesn't go up in smoke. Release the purple magic smoke. It might, oh, actually. No! Okay, there was a loose screw that fell on the motherboard and I could hear it shorting something out. Hopefully it didn't just die. That would be tragic, right in front of my eyes. I don't think you would have heard the zaps, but I was hearing like a little zzz, zzz. It's just a little jumper. It's probably fine. I don't hear it anymore. Right? Right? Oh, hello? All right, we got flashing lights here. I don't know what that means. Oh, I think those are the network adapters aren't connected. It lives! Well, it's not immediately blowing up. Yo, I've got post. It is green. Yeah, X5560 CPUs. I didn't see how much RAM. We are booting. I don't know why it's green. I guess that doesn't matter. Ultimately. I don't hear any hard drives clicking. I smell any smoke. I don't feel like that one is still plugged in all the way. I guess it is. This is exciting. I got green lights. I've got a green Windows logo. I don't know why it's green. Okay, the sound I'm hearing is not actually a sparking on the motherboard. It's like I'm hearing something about the scroll engaging and disengaging in the mouse. That's kind of weird. Maybe it was resetting USB power. I don't know. Super weird. Well, it showed the Windows logo, but now all I get is green. Like I said, it clearly had Windows on here. I was looking more like Windows 8, maybe. Maybe it had 10. That would be surprising, but I guess it's possible it had 10. Oh, we're here. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. I don't know what my pin was, but apparently I was wrong about it.
Oh man, core temp. That's a throwback. What are we looking at here? Yeah. All right, so. I said a lot of cores. It was a lot of cores for the time. 2 processors, only totaling 16 cores. 72 gigs of RAM, though. DDR3, that's not horrible. Look at all those drives. So this was just set up with a basic Windows 8, I guess, setup. Yeah, custom start menu. I don't know what's up with the green. Why does it only want to do 64 hertz? What? Excuse me? Well, I tried hooking it up to a different device for passing through to capture, and it wouldn't output a signal at all. I don't know that I could even get a driver for this. So, all right, we'll take a look. So you can see here, Adobe Creative Cloud, Handbrake, Google Drive, got some shortcuts, pretty basic workflow. Watch folders in Adobe Media Encoder here, and using Handbrake as well. I've got, it won't even let me open it anymore. Got Plex running on here. I'm pretty sure this was my Plex server at one point as well. Look at all those hard drives. 250 gig, probably. That's the SATA SSD for boot. Then 1 terabyte, 500 terabyte, 5 terabytes, 2 terabytes, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes. And these are all loaded up. Now, some of these have just Plex stuff on it, which I don't really care about. I want to see where's my work stuff? Here we go. Backup of my photos library, running 2007 to 2017, missing a lot from there. Temporary After Effects files. This may have only just been like switched over to Plex server before I even got it. Oh, here we go. Dump from hard drive circa 2016. Got some Overwatch gameplay. Got some camcorder footage here. What's on this? Oh, an unboxing? Old school unboxing of some weird phone recorder thing, which I don't even remember owning. Dump of videos from my Dropbox from my phone. Scrap files. Oh, there's my Linux for Windows noob video. 100 gigabytes. Wow, I still had benchmarking some graphics cards. Oh my goodness, my 9800 GT. What? Oh, look at that. Old school Linux Mint. Interesting. Yeah, these are some old YouTube videos. OBS, no scope glasses. Oh, Lord. OBS recordings from webcams from 2016.
Oh, that hurts my brain. I know this is super annoying to look at when it's green. Camera footage. Yeah, so this is all 2016. Well, this is cool. I do have some old footage on here. Some basic unboxings. In progress reviews, many of which I never honestly finished. Footage of the cats from 2014. Yep, that's not even going to play. Yikes. Okay, Google Drive. Vox Talks podcast from 2017. Oh my. I don't even remember doing this podcast. I don't know what I'm saying there. One of my transcodes folder for the original purpose this thing was built for. Graphics archives, WordPress archives, Dropbox backups. And mostly a lot of Plex stuff. Darn, I was hoping there'd be more work. We got the one hard drive loaded up with work stuff. Also, quick shout out, that Chocolate Rain G drive there is my very first ever 1 terabyte hard drive that I ever owned. I got it for Christmas in like 2011 for my first ever YouTube PC build. It's crazy that that's still there. I recognized it right away. That's pretty much it. But this is how I did servers before I had the knowledge that I do now, before we had some of the software that we have available today. Was I would literally just load up, and I still did this up until recently, would just load up a bunch of different hard drives in Windows. And what you don't see here, since I don't have the network connected or anything, is that before I got my Synology NAS and stuff, I would literally just take, say, this hard drive, right-click it, go to Properties, Sharing, Advanced Sharing, and share it out. And then you have to go to Permissions and add the user everyone. Oh, hey, it's already there. Used to, you had to manually type in the name everyone, which felt super jank. And then give it a name and share it out on the network. And then I could just access these over the network. And obviously, since they're single spinning drives, they were not super fast. It was not super reliable, but that is how I would do it, was I would take a big computer like this with a bunch of hard drive bays, load it up with whatever scrap hard drives I had, and share it out over the network. These days, you can build your own NAS, run something like TrueNAS or Unraid, combine those for faster speeds, and start sharing over the network in a much more reliable way. You can see here I do have some of my older NAS mounts connected here. Pretty cool. Things have come a long way. This is certainly one way, if you are not willing to learn server hardware, that you could, or server software really, that you could have done this. But these days, even with this exact same hardware configuration, I would absolutely load up, say, TrueNAS, or probably in this case, Unraid specifically. I know I keep listing both of them. TrueNAS is more of a formal, like, you use ZFS RAID arrays, which means you need a bunch of the same size hard drive. And like, I've got 3 1 terabytes, 2 500 gigs, 2 2 terabytes, and then a 5 terabyte. That wouldn't work for a ZFS RAID and something like TrueNAS. You would want to use Unraid, which uses what's called a JBOD, or just a bunch of disks. And this big 5 terabyte would act as a parity drive, which means it has basically fragments of all the data off the different drives that acts as a mirror of it. So if one of these drives dies, you can take what was on there off of here and split it back to a new drive. And then these just combine into one big pool. So I'd have, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 terabytes of space, plus this as parity, and have that accessible in one big pool over the network. That's what I would do today. But back in the day, I didn't really know any of that stuff, and I still found ways to make it work. This whole server is just a big exercise in jank and scrap. And with offices and workplaces getting rid of Windows 10 PCs due to it going end of life, and the gamut of hardware available on the used market today, this is the kind of thing you can still do today. Ultimately, the message I want to leave you with here is that you can do so much with anything. Businesses and data centers are throwing this hardware away, giving it away for free, as are people like myself who are upgrading, and this stuff genuinely serves no purpose for them. But for you, you can turn it into a box of magic that hosts your photo library, your movie library, your video editing workflow, your
photo database for work, your writing backups, your game storage. You could run a VM on this that runs Steam, and you install all of your Steam games to it, and then the Steam LAN sync just syncs it to your whatever computer or Steam Deck or whatever when you want to re-download a game. You can fill it up with just scrap hard drives. The hard drives in here were old, assorted, random. You can just put stuff together and do it, and you don't need to invest a ton of money. On these videos, I get a ton of comments about how the PC parts market is just too expensive now, and you can't do any of this stuff anymore. And while new hard drives are at a very awkward point where I'm not even able to continue expanding my primary pool that I had planned on for this year, the general hardware scene is better than ever in terms of what you have access to on the used market. Don't go for some brand new AMD Threadripper Epic 200 core processor and 3 million terabytes of RAM and a RTX 6000. You don't need any of that. I built this with scraps in a cave like Tony Stark 10 years ago, and it would still be useful to you today.
As far as this hardware goes, I'm just decommissioning it. The server chassis, I'll just donate or trash. We'll see what kind of condition it's in. Like I said, the CPU, motherboard, RAM combination here, I will probably just sell at cost to someone on the Discord server or the forums. If anyone does want 16 cores at a higher power cost. Actually, this fan isn't even on, I just noticed. For their own first server, because it would be fine, especially again with a basic GPU to handle transcoding, it would be fine for Plex or Jellyfin or a photo library or something basic, storage. The hard drives I'm gonna run smart tests on, and as long as they're fine, I will just integrate them into other storage things that I have needs for. Pretty much all the data on it is redundant or useless anyway, so yeah, I'm just glad to get this out of here. It was a nice trip down memory lane, almost exactly 10 years after I built it in the first place. Let me know how your thoughts on the whole self-hosting adventure space is going. How are you feeling these days? Let me know in the comments below. Come chat on the forums. Have you built something made of spare parts in a cave? Let me know, and remember to be kind, rewind.